Good evening and welcome to NXTGEN Season 18. This is the PowerMaxed Group A1 League, and we are heading back in time tonight to Classic Spa-Francorchamps. As you see, everyone is in the BMW M1 Procars. Fantastic cars for this circuit, as GT5 Vass has just left the session, maybe with brake issues. We do know that he has been having some brake pedal issues during the week, but we have 10 drivers in the session around this 8.762 mile long circuit. Spa-Francorchamps been around since the 1930s, and even it was built in 1921. It was a 9.3 mile circuit back then. The layout got changed in 1930 to a 9.236 mile, then changed once again in 1934, where I believe the pit lane was slightly different. And it constantly went through changes until 1947, which we get to this layout, before it finally got to its final iteration that we see today in 1979. It's a fantastic circuit. It's a very quick circuit for this Belgian track. So, who is in tonight? We have Cam 123 Diz, who's in the pit lane at the moment, NGR Tim, Bruce Lee Harding, Shadowstalker DBS, 4Fish, NXTGEN Les, D Whitehouse 7, Rally Matt is back after a couple weeks out. Traumatic Dave is there, 9th on the list. And finally Jack TM53 Synopsis, and we are hoping that GT5 Vass also comes into the fray. But the standings so far: 4Fish leads the way on 74 points, with NXTGEN Les on 73. Jack TM53 Synopsis has 69, with Bruce Lee Harding on 66. D Whitehouse has 57, with Rally Matt on 48. Cam 123 Deers has 45, whilst Traumatic Dave has 42. GT5 Vass is on 38. Shadowstalker in 10th on 37. The back 10 is 11th place is Robuser Johnny on 32. Tim is on 27. Bob Mark 1 19. AMH Racing on 15, RS Jim has 12, and Ultimatum in 16th and last on the classified tables, with just 3 points to his name. There's 4Fish, number 35. Let's go on board with him. So, up towards La Source, which is effectively the final corner on the circuit. So, down the hill, you head towards Eau Rouge. Obviously, Eau Rouge, the left-hand part before you head up through Radion. So, flick it left through Eau Rouge, lift on the way through, make sure the car doesn't go too wide, and then bring the throttle gradually back in as you head over the top through Radion. And then you head down to the Kemmel Straight. Well, I say straight, it's a little bit wonky in Classic Spartans. A few flicks, rights, lefts, left, right, before you head down to Le Comte. So 90-degree left-hander down to third. So he's 90 degrees, but still fairly open. Clipping the apex on the left-hand side. Down to Haut de la Cour. Yes, flick left, flick right, flat on the decks, before you then go down towards Bernonville. You continue to descend. It's a flat right-hander in the M1 Procar, absolutely pinned. Run it close to the barrier, then bring it back in for the second apex before you head up towards Malmedy. This flick left, flick right, touch of lift on the left just to keep the car settled. Keep it right, and then you head down towards the master straight. The houses right next to you as you go down the master straight. Don't want to get it wrong, and then you come up towards the master kink. Good slipstream we've got here on board with 4Fish, 174 miles an hour. Up towards the master kink we come. Again, just a flick left, flick right, should be flat. Is, well, a little lift from 4Fish. Maybe just to try and get a time, because if you hit the wall you will have an invalidated lap time. Down the Hollowell straight before you head into Hollowell. As now, you, after your little climb up, you now descend back down into Hollowell. Just flick right, and then you go straight into Stavelot. Just carry it on, hit the brakes down to 4th, get it tucked in as it tightens on the apex. Back to 4th throttle, and you flick it left before heading up to Le Carrière. Right on the back of whoever that is in front of us, possibly Shadow Stalker. Do Le Carrière, then you little lift through the right. Obviously 4Fish possibly could be taken flat, but obviously with the car ahead, unable to take advantage of being able to go flat as you can do through the second part of that double long right-hander. All the way down the straight we go towards the infamous Blanchimont. Go through Corporal Frere first, and 4Fish will look to overtake whoever that is in front of us. Flick it right, flick it left through Corporal Frere. A bit of a tap, I don't know what happened between that. Blanchimont a bit tighter than it is nowadays, down to 4th. Then you flick it right and up towards the clubhouse. It's left-hander here. Again, flat left-hander, but don't get the wrong line. Down to La Source, there's hairpin right. Down to first gear. Bit of a late turn in if you want to try and square the corner up to get the best exit available. Then down the hill to cross the line. And what does our championship leader do? It's going to be a 3:37.121. Oh, it was NXTGEN Les who was in front of us. So the two leading protagonists of this championship so far. D Whitehouse comes across the line, puts it 3rd. Cam 123 Deers. That was a bit of a hit. Don't know who that was for. Jack's having to go again. Bruce. I think it might have been Shadow Stalker having that little bit of a bump. Down to La Source for Cam 123 Deers. Up. And then down. Massive undulation throughout this circuit. Cross the line for Cam. Doesn't set a time. Shadow Stalker, he doesn't set a time either. Traumatic Dave, the last man of the pack. Has he kept it clean? Only 4 cars have set valid lap times. Rally Matt being the 4th of those with a 3:47.9. Down the hill for Traumatic Dave. What can he do? It's having to go again then, so 6 of the 10 cars having no choice but to have a second flying lap because they've invalidated their first attempt. NXTGEN Les, currently the first person on track at the moment, so he'll be the first person to finish qualifying out on track, although saying that Tim, who the last time we came to Classic Spa in the M1 Pro Cars, decided to go to space. Quite literally hit a barrier, went flying straight up, straight back down onto the circuit. He's carried on as if nothing had happened. But NXTGEN Les Heading up towards, that's past Le Carrier. Long straight, it's a massive lap, so we're not going to have many laps in the race. Probably going to have about 7-8 laps as we're heading up towards Blanchimont between Les and Fourfish. You can hear the engine screaming along. They flick it right, flick it left. So then head up into Blanchimont, down to fourth for both of them. Bit of a slide from Fourfish, but it gets him not too bad of an exit, keeps the car straight. Up to Clubhouse. And down to La Source, a bit wider there, a bit more confidence from Les. Just able to keep throttling that a little bit longer. It might pay dividends. Down to the start-finish line then. Next Gen Les, what can he do? I think his lap time got invalidated, and I don't think Fourfish went any quicker. The D Whitehouse is finished. Rally Matt still on circuit. Who's going to be next across this line? I think it's going to be Jack TM53 Synopsis. He's down in 10th at the moment because he's not yet set a time. Into La Source. Bit of a wiggle from Jack, the defending champion. Just trying to squeeze as much power as early as possible there. Crosses the line, doesn't set a time, so Jack will be starting at the back of the pack. He's got a very long race ahead of him. Bruce Lee Harding down the hill. He does set a time of 4:01.2. It's not the most spectacular, and it's not going to set the leaderboards alight, but it puts him in 5th. Cam 123 Diz out of La Source, down the hill. Has he managed to get a valid lap time? He does. He goes 5th instead, a 3:48.6. Traumatic Dave is apparently deciding to go exploring. Shadowstalker puts himself in 6th, so Bruce Lee Harding really not had a good lap. Yeah, Traumatic Dave decided to go exploring there. It's an interesting part. But Fourfish takes pole position, and that crucial bonus point, it means he'll extend his lead very slightly before the race begins. And Les lines up alongside in 2nd place. Row 2 has D Whitehouse 7 and Rally Matt. Row 3, Cam 123 Diz and Shadowstalker DBS. Row 4 is Bruce Lee Harding and Tim 78. Traumatic Dave and Jack TM53 Synopsis round out the grid on row 5, and it's going to be a long race for those back 3. Because especially for Jack, we know he's got the pace, but he's not been able to set that time that he requires. So, time to get the show underway. So we sink in. The revs rise. We have the 3 red lights. We are green at Spa-Francorchamps. Look like a good start from the blue machine of Bruce Lee Harding in the background, but it's Fourfish. He's going to lose out because Les gets into the lead, into Eau Rouge. Rally Matt into 2nd place. So we head up the hill through Raldion and down the Kemmel. For the first time of 7 laps, Les leads from Rally Matt. Is a poor start from Fourfish. Back through the pack, Tim Bruce has had a bad getaway, as has Cam. They're now at the back and with a bit of a gap to make up. So maybe a bit of contact or something happening there. Tim down to 8th place. Jack only up to 7th. As they head... Oh, that's D Whitehouse 7, he's gone round with Shadowstalker, and it is carnage at Lecom. Jack involved. Bruce Lee Harding now up into 7th, now into 6th, as we come down the hill through Haut de la Camp and towards Burnhamville. Tim into the top 5, but Bruce Lee Harding possibly looking for a move. Oh, that's not the best line, and D Whitehouse has flipped the car. He's also used the reset because he was not going to stay on his wheels. Luckily no one was around, but he's lost all the places, and he is to the back of the pack and into the wall almost again. Meanwhile, at the front, Four Fish has managed to get past Rally Matt and Les. That slipstream down the Master Straight, working an absolute treat. Maybe he's on loose setup as well, which might be giving a few extra mile an hour down that straight, but Next Gen Les not really sticking with him. He's 8/10, just about now getting the effect of the slipstream, but Rally Matt 2.2 behind the two leaders who are leading the championship. Bruce Lee Harding has got past NGR Tim in the meantime, and Jack and D Whitehouse 7 are side by side down the Master Straight into the Master Kink, and Jack loses out to D Whitehouse 7, so D Whitehouse into 8th place. Up over the hill towards Hollowell, and Jack is looking to the inside. Decides better of it into Hollowell because he knows how tight Stavelot can be. It's very much a one-line corner. D Whitehouse into the wall, but he's just about got away with it. Goes to cover Jack to the outside. Jack switches to the inside. Should be job done. Is job done from the number 1 machine. Meanwhile, it's side-by-side action for the lead. Next Gen Les alongside Four Fish. That slipstream coming into play. He'll get through just before they head into Blanchimont. This is going to be what the leading battle's all about. It's going to be the slipstream. I'm afraid Rally Matt probably isn't going to get in on the action anymore. That slipstream very much too powerful if you're running on your own. Into La Source for the first time. It will be Next Gen Les who leads this first lap after taking the lead off the start line, losing it halfway through, regaining it at the end. So Les leads back through Eau Rouge and Radiant. The number 99 making good headway. He's off the road onto the grass. Very lucky that that car hasn't spun the rear wheels up. That could have ended a lot worse for Next Gen Les. She gives herself a little bit lucky in reality. Bruce Lee Harding currently in 5th place, looking to chase down Traumatic Dave. 1.9 is the gap. And Jack Team 53 Synopsis looking to get onto the back of Cam 123 Diz. Camel wide out of Radion. Down the Camel. He's got a good run as Jack. Keeping an eye on the gap between Four Fish and Les though. That is closing as they're heading down towards Burnhamville. I'm going to go there because Four Fish is right on the tail of Les as we head through Burnhamville and go up towards Malmedy. Though it just looks like Les has that little bit more confidence through the corners and a slightly better line into Malmedy, actually increasing the gap from what was 2/10 to pretty much 6/10 now, although a bit wide from Next Gen Les. Across the grass again. He is flirting with danger going across that grass, and it's not helped him at all because here comes Four Fish in the slipstream. He's got a bit of a run down the Master Straight. Can he do it before the Master King? Will he do it on the Hollowell Straight just after? Through the kink they go. Down the Hollowell Straight. If Four Fish are going to make this move, he's got to do it before Hollowell. Otherwise, Stavelot will be looming and trouble almost inevitable. Yeah, you see Fourfish not close enough coming down the straight towards Hollowell. Les will hold on for now. Meanwhile, Dramatic Dave and Bruce Lee Harding getting close together now. 0.6 of a second separate them. On more with Bruce Lee Harding as we head into Stavelot. A little wide entry, but gets a half decent exit actually, that from Bruce Lee Harding. Whether it's enough to get onto the back as we have movement behind. Because, oh hello, there goes Tim. He's into the wall, not quite to space, but good effort for trying. And Jack has fallen behind DY House 7, and DY House 7 now on the tail of Cam 123 Diz. As they head up towards Le Carrier. DY House all over the bumper there. That is the view DY House has if he was to play on bumper camera. He doesn't really have one. He's got a lovely blue boot of Cam 123 Diz. He's alongside up towards Blanchimont we head. You don't really want to be going side by side. Bruce Lee Harding in the meantime has got past Traumatic Dave, but we're going to focus with this because it's side by side up towards Blanchimont. This could be quite close. They flick it right, flick it left, up towards the Blanchimont corner itself, and Cam just about manages to get the car ahead as they head into Blanchimont, single file. That's very wide from Tim, and he's definitely clipped the wall there. DY House are getting the move done after Blanchimont. Just fantastic stuff from these three as Cam now gets him back at La Source. Down the hill to Eau Rouge. Up towards Radion and over the hill towards the Camel. Some fantastic racing from these three. And all over just 6th place. There's not even a top 5 on the line here. Up towards Lecombe. Cam in the lead of this trio in 6th place. Les is doing a nice bit of gap management right now at the front, even though it's not a big gap. It's enough to keep Fourfish at bay for now. The only thing is, Bruce Lee Harding, he has pulled away from Traumatic Dave just a touch, just the 5/10 though. But if these two work together continuously, they can catch up to Rally Matt, as we are nearing the halfway stage of this race already. Meanwhile, DY House has got back past Cam as they head through Malmedy now. DY House into the wall at Malmedy. That's going to cause Cam and Jack to have a run. Down the master straight they go. It's almost 3 wide. Jack was thinking about down the inside, couldn't quite do it. The gap closed. He's got to pick one side now. Surely he's going to have to pick Cam's because that is where the speed will be. Although DY House fighting back, Jack's backed off before they head to the Master King. They go side by side, and DY House decides to allow Cam into that slot for now. No point in risking going side by side at this point in the race. Although Cam looking to be on the defensive down the Hollowell straight before they get to Hollowell and Stavelot. But Jack is practically pushing DY House 7 down the Hollowell straight into Hollowell, and DY House yields the position once again, being on the outside. It's never going to be favourable, especially with the way the car runs out wide, but Cam 123 Diz into the wall. Amazingly, it's not scuppered him too much, and he's just able to keep that place for now. Meanwhile, the lead is down to 0.2 of a second. Fourfish on the tail of Les as they come up towards Lecombe. Fourfish jolts to the inside. He's going to have track position. Gets through on the inside of Lecombe. Great move. He's going to have a bit of a job now to try and keep that place because Les, being on his tail, is going to get that slipstream. 1.5 as well between Rally Matt and Bruce Lee Harding. And that's coming down rapidly as well. There you go. So we're going to have another trio battling it out, but for the podium places. Oh, Bruce Lee Harding wide through Blanchimont. Gets away with it though. Oh, that's Cam. Cam has had a massive accident. Involved in that is D Whitehouse 7. Big accident just before Blanchimont. Looks like a tangle of cars between Cam and D Whitehouse 7, but Cam went absolutely flying. I mean, it's not quite Tim flying, but that is a very big impact for Cam 123 Diz. He's away in 7th at the moment. Tim has managed to get past D Whitehouse and all of that. But that is not going to be helpful because Jack is now 11 seconds down the road. Don't know what's happened there. Unfortunately, we don't get any replays with Project Cars 2, but you can pretty much safe to assume that Cam's rear left comes into contact with D Whitehouse's front right and pretty much ends up the way it did. Les has dropped a fair chunk of time this lap, so maybe he's clipped the wall, but he's now 1.2 seconds behind Fourfish, so Fourfish can hold his nerve. This is the halfway stage of the race, so it's all still to play for. Meanwhile, Bruce Lee Harding side by side with Rally Matt, heading down towards Burnhamville. Up towards Malmedy, that's wide from Traumatic Dave, he's on the grass. Into the wall. Maybe he's just about got away with that Traumatic Dave, but he's lost a lot of time and he'll lose the slipstream. And that pretty much means that Traumatic Dave won't be able to get on the back of these two because Bruce Lee Harding and Rally Matt race each other for a couple of seasons now in Next Gen. They both know how each other drive, but Bruce Lee Harding on the Master Straight, looking to go side by side up towards the Master Kink. Oh, and Bruce Lee Harding just about gets in front of Rally Matt, but he clips the barrier, and here comes Rally Matt on the exit. Gets the run out, down the Hollowell straight, over the hill. And Rally Matt will retain third place as they come down towards Hollowell and Stavelot. Will Bruce Lee Harding really try and keep it to the outside? No, he does break a bit earlier. Through Stavelot they go. The leading duo 24 seconds clear of anyone, so they are free to battle. Les right on the tail of Fourfish. Looking to go side by side now. Down towards Blanchimont we go. Les will have the inside, he has the lead. Absolutely flat chat, 158 miles an hour. Bit of a squeeze from Les. Les gets away though, into the lead. Fantastic stuff from those two, but Bruce Lee Harding can't quite get the same effect on Rally Matt. He's still looking to the inside, coming up towards Blanchimont though. They flick it right, and Bruce Lee Harding on the flick left before Blanchimont will claim third place for now, but he's got to stay there for 3 more laps. Meanwhile, NGR Tim has D Whitehouse behind. D Whitehouse 7 on the outside, coming up towards Blanchimont. Will get the position. Tim decides not to really fight it too much. He's quite happy getting around this lap at the moment, I think Tim is. But 1 second is the gap between first and second. It's the battle for third, that's getting interesting. Traumatic Dave hasn't really been dropped in all of this, considering he had that moment at Malmedy on lap 4. But Bruce Lee Harding has now got an 0.8 of a second gap to Matt as they go down the Camel for the 5th time. Also, Tim, even though he did pretty much kind of allow D Whitehouse past. He stuck with him quite nicely up through Eau Rouge and Radion. Although Tim didn't quite get the run he wanted through Radion, so he's not quite been able to stick to the bumper of D. Whitehouse as he probably would have liked. As they head up towards Le Com. Meanwhile, Bruce Lee Harding just in front of us. We're on board with Rally Mat 85. One at Donington Park. Opened his account beautifully. He's obviously missed a couple of weeks, which has put him down the order, but right now he's having a good solid race. Good battle with Bruce Lee Harding. Up over the hill. Down the Master Straight. We're going to pull away from this battle because Four Fish, 3/10 behind the NXTGEN Les, out to Stavelot. Has Four Fish got enough of a run to get onto the back of him through Le Carrier and pass him up to the run to Blanchimont? Now, if that is the case, if these two keep swapping like this just before Blanchimont, Four Fish is in the prime seat here, because it'll be lap 7, an odd number that it happens on. So Four Fish hasn't got the run he needed through Le Carrier. But the slipstream is strong as they come up towards Blanchimont. 2/10, 1/10, under a tenth now. Just grows as they get up towards Blanchimont. You just tell that Four Fish isn't quite as confident as Les. Les taking those slightly wider lines, quicker entry speeds, and using up more of the track compared to Four Fish, but the times are so close. And Four Fish almost had to make Les defend into La Source. Les had a bit of a think about it, I think, but decided he was far enough ahead to not warrant it. Through Blanchimont for Bruce Lee Harding and Rally Matt. They have now dropped Traumatic Dave by a good couple of seconds. Meanwhile, D. Whitehouse is now behind NGR Tim once again, as they head up towards Blanchimont for the 5th time. Now, man, we haven't really seen much of this race. He's been out the back on his own, but still running around quite nicely, getting points. Is Shadowstalker DBA. Shadowstalker will be the first time. He's not the fastest, but he is definitely not a quitter. 10th place for him so far. Back to the Kemmel, where Bruce Lee Harding has just half a second over Rally Matt as they're coming through the final kick to the Kemmel towards Le Com. Slightly wider line there from Bruce Lee Harding. Whether that's to an advantage or not remains to be seen as Rally Matt continues to push Bruce Lee Harding all the way down to Bournonville. Little lift from Bruce Lee Harding in the middle of Bournonville on the exit towards Malmedy. Matt just can't quite get within that half a second window that appears to be that magic window where the slipstream gets you past. He is getting in there, but down the Master Straight, the straight is running out and the Master Kink awaits. But if Matt can get a good run out of the Master Kink, he could have a good run down the Hollowell Straight and get Bruce Lee Harding before Hollowell. But again, it has to be before Hollowell, it can't be during. purely because of Stavolo, the tighter right-hander. Bruce Lee Harding putting it in the middle of the circuit, making it difficult for Rally Matt to pick a side. Matt finally goes to the outside, down the Hollowell straight, and tucks back in because he doesn't have enough of a run as they enter Hollowell and Stavolo. It is critical. If you're going to get a move down there, has to be before the corner, because Stavolo tightens to a point. If you're on the outside, you'll naturally go into the barrier and be followed by the car on the inside. It's just the natural progression of the car through there with the pace that they are travelling at. But Rally Matt not yet giving up through Le Carrier. He is right on the back, and this time right in that window, heading up towards Blanchimont. Bruce Lee Harding's going to have to go defensive. Up towards Blanchimont. Yes, he does. He goes to that left-hand side. Making Matt think, does he really want to risk it around the outside of Blanchimont? And in fact, Matt doesn't get alongside, so Bruce can just take his normal line into the infamous corner before heading through Clubhouse and down to La Source. NXTGEN Les has started the final lap. He's got a 1.8 second gap over Fourfish, which means Fourfish does not have the slipstream. He's going to have to get a move on through the Kemmel and through Lecom to stand a chance of being near Les down the Master Straight. Meanwhile, NGR Tim runs a bit wide through Blanchimont. He's got D Whitehouse 7 behind him. This is the battle for 8th place. D Whitehouse on the grass as they enter Clubhouse into La Source. And Tim very much holding his own here in 8th place. On to the final lap for Tim and D Whitehouse 7 then. Back on board with Rally Matt 85 as we head down towards Bournonville. .4 of a second, so we're kind of in that magic window at the moment. A good run out of Bournonville would mean Rally Matt should get a good run through Malmedy as well. Breaks a bit early through Malmedy, and it's going to cost him a bit of time. Up to half a second then, just over. On to the Master Straight for the final time. This, as I've said before, the battle for 3rd place. Bruce Lee Harding doing a fantastic job keeping Rally Matt behind. It's not easy around this circuit with the slipstream. Matt is gaining. They're going to get to the Master Kink first, but a good run through here. So a good run through there could get you ahead down the Hollowell straight. Matt does have a little look, but realises he's going to run out of road very quickly as they go down the hill. Oh, Tim's off. And that's the same spot that he went to space on through Malmedy. He hit those hay bales and went straight up. So he's lucky not to have done that one again, because that would have been the second time on camera. But Bruce Lee Harding still fending off Rally Matt. 0.4 of a second is the gap. To Le Carrier and towards Blanchimont. Rally Matt this time alongside through the right hander. This could be the move that decides 3rd place, but Rally Matt's run wide onto the grass into the wall. It's gonna cost him that crucial time. Is he close enough to try and reclose coming up towards Blanchimont? Meanwhile at the front, it's going to be NXTGEN Les. Fantastic start to the race, getting ahead of Fourfish. A great little battle between the two. but it will be NXTGEN Les who wins here at Classic Spa-Francorchamps. Fourfish takes a well-deserved second, and in the end only loses 2 points due to his pole position. Bruce Lee Harding still just about ahead of Rally Matt into La Source. Matt looking for a bit of a switchback, but Bruce Lee Harding parks it on the apex. Fantastic defensive driving for the final part of this race. Bruce Lee Harding, cracking effort by him, takes third. Ignore those timings. Rally Matt is fourth. Traumatic Dave with Jack TM53 Synopsis just behind. Traumatic Dave finishes fifth. Jack in sixth. Cam123 Diz currently residing in seventh. That result will put NXTGEN Les to the top of the table in the Paramax Group A1 Tours by just 1 point, heading into the next round. Cam123 Diz comes out of La Source. It's not been the race he would have wanted, but it is more points. Seventh for him. NGR Tim still fending off D Whitehouse as we come towards the end of the lap into La Source. D Whitehouse does have a look to the inside. Tim runs very, very wide, almost as if he wants to square the corner up. I think D Whitehouse didn't go past there, almost allowing Tim to have it, because Tim finishes in 8th place. A great drive by him, well deserved. D Whitehouse 7 will be in 9th unless he waits for Shadowstalker before the line, which he might well do. Shadowstalker locks up into La Source. Down the hill. Oh, and Shadowstalker will get 9th because D Whitehouse will wait on the line to get 10th. So, provisional results for tonight. NXTGEN Les and Fourfish take the top 2 spots, followed by Bruce Lee Harding and Rally Matt. Traumatic Dave is in 5th with Jack in 6th. Cam123 Diz in 7th. Tim in 8th. Shadowstalker 9th, and D Whitehouse 7 rounds out the finishers in 10th place, nearly 2 minutes down on the winner. Next week we head to Brands Hatch Indy. It's a full championship reverse grid. Everyone back in their usual cars, so the Audis are back, the Skylines are back, the BMW M330, the Mercedes, and obviously the Ford Sierra Cosworth are all back next week for Brands Hatch Indy. Like I say, a full championship reverse grid. Going to be tough for the likes of Fourfish and Les, especially Les at the back of the pack in his Ford Sierra Cosworth. So do tune in next week for that, because that is going to be an absolute cracker of a race. Next up tonight, it will be the Paramax TCV8 League from Imola. Fantastic circuit, fantastic card. Stay tuned for that. That'll be up in around 10 minutes time on the channel. But until then, from myself and everyone here in the Group A1s, thank you to Paramax for sponsoring the league, and thank you for watching at home. But from us, for now, until next week, good night.